Yep, it's another Thomas the Tank Engine story. And this one is called Thomas and the Breakdown Train. There's Thomas. Let's see what happens. Every day, Sir Topham Hatt came to the station to catch his train and always said hello to Thomas. There were lots of freight cars in the yard. Different ones came in every day, and Thomas had to push and pull them into their right places. He worked hard. He knew now that he wasn't so clever as he had thought. Besides, Sir Topham Hatt had been kind to him, and he wanted to learn all about freight cars so he could be a really useful engine. But on a siding by themselves were some freight cars that Thomas was told he mustn't touch. There was a small coach, some flatbed cars, and two strange things that his driver called cranes. There's the cranes. That's the breakdown train, he said. When there's an accident, the workmen get into the coach and the engine takes them quickly to help the hurt people and to clear and mend the line. The cranes are for lifting heavy things like engines and coaches and freight cars. One day, Thomas was in the yard when he heard an engine whistling. Help, help! And a freight train came rushing through much too fast. The engine, a new one called James, was frightened. His brake blocks were on fire, and smoke and sparks streamed out on each side. They're pushing me! They're pushing me! He panted. On, laughed the freight cars. Help, help, yelled poor James as he disappeared under a bridge. I'd like to teach those freight cars a lesson, said Thomas the Tank Engine. Presently, a bell rang in the signal box, and a man came running. James is off the line, the breakdown train. Quickly, he shouted. So Thomas was coupled on. The workmen jumped into their coach, and off they went. Thomas worked his hardest. Hurry, 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 he puffed. And this time he wasn't pretending to be like Gordon. He really meant it. Bother those freight cars and their tricks, he thought. I hope poor James isn't hurt. They found James and the freight cars at a bend in the line. The brake van and the last few freight cars were on the rails. But the front ones were piled in a heap. James was in a field with a cow looking at him, and his driver and firemen were feeling him all over to see if he was hurt. Never mind, James, they said. It wasn't your fault. It was those wooden brakes they gave you. We always said they were no good. Thomas pushed the breakdown train alongside. Then he pulled the unhurt freight cars out of the way. Oh dear, they groaned. Serves you right, puffed Thomas crossly. When the men put other freight cars on the line, he pulled them away, too. He was hard at work, puffing backwards and forwards all the afternoon. This'll teach you a lesson. This'll teach you a lesson, he told the freight cars, and they answered, Yes, it will. Yes, it will, in a sad, groany, creaky sort of voice. They left the broken freight cars and mended the line. Then, with the two cranes, they put James back on the rails. He tried to move, but he couldn't. So Thomas helped him back to the shed. Sir Topham Hatt was waiting anxiously for them. "Well, Thomas," he said kindly, "I've heard all about it and I'm very pleased with you. You're a really useful engine. James will have some proper brakes and a new coat of paint. She'll have a branch line all to yourself." "Oh, sir," said Thomas happily. Now Thomas is as happy as can be. He has a branch line all to himself and puffs proudly backwards and forwards with 2 coaches all day. He is never lonely because there is always some engine to talk to at the junction. Edward and Henry stop quite often and tell him the news. Gordon is always in a hurry and does not stop, but he never forgets to say, "Boop, boop," to little Thomas, and Thomas always whistles, "Beep, beep," in return. That was a really good story. I like that one. Yeah. That's from Thomas the Tank Engine, the very first stories. Yeah, by the Reverend W Audrey. He was a really awesome guy. He loved steam engines and started to write stories about them a long, long time ago. I like him a lot, and I like you a lot. I do.